episode.
All right, everybody out there in podcast land / YouTube world. This is, like he said, the Bunny Rabbit's Hole. And what we do here at the Bunny Rabbit's Hole is each and every week we pick a single theme. We talk about that theme until something inspires us to talk about something different. We talk about that for a little bit until finally Craig gets tired of us ranting about some shit that we don't even know where we got to that point and brings us back to our main theme. And I, of course, to introduce ourselves, I, of course, am one of the hosts here, Jason, and this is...
I am, of course, Craig. And like Jason said, even though last time Jason brought me back on topic,
yes,
but we do pick a central theme every week, and we usually spend like a week researching it. We only spent a couple of days researching this one because we have a lot of experience in this one. And this one, usually we research both sides for and against our narrative, but there's no against our narrative. If you think there is, fuck you.
Because this one's opinion-based. It's 100% opinion-based.
And easily offended, get the fuck out.
Yeah, so it's 100% his opinion, 100% my opinion, and then you have your own opinion, and that makes 3 opinions. And that's a menage a trois.
I got divorced for that once. She wasn't involved. No.
Let's just hope it wasn't a devil's triangle.
No, it was a goat and... Oh, wait a minute. Never mind.
It was a goat, a cliff, and a pair of rubber boots.
Right. So, this week, our topic is... And... Again, if you're easily offended, stop listening right now because you're not going to like this title. This is, yes?
Go for it. I'm waiting. This is the build-up.
Okay. It is the pussification of metal.
Yes. Yes. God damn it. God damn it.
I'm going to take a quick second. We don't want to get copyright problems, but I'm going to give you a quick taste of what fucking metal is supposed to be. In just a quick second. I have too many windows open.
And then we're waiting.
And here it is.
That's so metal.
Oh, hold on. I got to make sure the volume is... Because if you're listening to metal and you're listening till you can barely hear it, you don't like metal. Get out of here. So here it is. All right, that should stop. That was less 30 seconds. You can't get us copyright infringement.
And everybody who knows metal knows the song Walk by the band Pantera.
Right.
So
the most iconic guitar player of all time who wrote the most iconic and catchy riffs ever.
Exactly. Those are like, I think it was Scott Ian that said is the most powerful 4-chord song ever written.
Right.
So before we really get into the pussification of metal, I'm glad that you started here with Pantera because there's something that I wanted to, because a lot of bands go from being just hardcore metal, punk, and then they sell out commercially.
Right.
Pantera is one of those anomalies that did it in reverse.
Right.
Now, if anybody that knows anything about the band Pantera, they had several albums before Cowboys from Hell, but they were a glam hair band rock band that was more in the vein of a Poison / Motley Crue being down on the Sunset Strip from the 80s than they were the Cowboys from Hell.
Right, yes. Pantera actually started in 1981.
Which, if you don't know, is about the same time Slayer started.
Right. And back then, that was the hair rock, glam rock, and so that's what they started with. And it wasn't until the late 80s, early 90s when they got some balls.
Yeah. Now, there is one iconic song from this early time period that people will reference a lot, and the song is called Pussy Tight. And it's just a party rock. It's just a party song. And it's just the lyrics are just like they're just repeated like over and over and over again. It's just pussy tight, tonight, pussy tight, all right. I mean, it's just less than genius, but it doesn't hide anything. That's what.
Right up there with Two Live Crews and that whole me and my homies like to play this game. Some call it Anthrax, some call it The Train.
Exactly. Now, I was reading this when I was doing this research here. I read a really good thing because I was trying to find some of the biggest bands that would appear to have sold out. Metallica.
Yeah.
But
It was Lars Ulrich.
yeah. So, but one of the things that kept coming is people kept defending people commercializing their stuff because, and I kind of agree with this, that you're in music to have people hear your music. Now I understand that not everybody can be like Alex from the band Fudge Tunnel, who just created studio albums and never toured. So not everybody is like that, but they always came back to the two things. The only reason you got into music in the first place is one, pussy, two,
Yep.
money. That's it. And if you can make, what's that?
You forgot three. Drugs are easier to get if you're a rock star.
They definitely are. And money kind of covers all that.
Right.
And actually, really, money would cover the first one too, because
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna. Ugh. There is
one. You said you had an issue with doing the research.
I did this research, and I got so pissed off doing this research, I quit researching it. And to me, it all comes down to one band that did it, and the rest followed. And that band is everybody's sacred band, the fucking goat whores Metallica.
Yes.
And it started with two songs. The I Forgot, called Unforgiven or whatever it's called, and the song Nothing Else Matter, which translates to none of our songs matter anymore, just our fucking money.
Yes.
And Lars Ulrich suing fucking, what was that? Napster. Because they didn't make enough money.
Yeah. Now, when I was doing some of the research, they had this self-grandizing festival called the Orion Festival down there. The first one was in like New Jersey, but then the last couple that they had were in the Detroit area. But they were talking about how they needed to do this festival, even though they lost millions of dollars doing it. Okay, now that statement alone right there states their loss, how they kind of lost it.
Right.
That you can go ahead and lose millions of dollars and it doesn't really matter because you had to do this.
Right. Now, before we go any further with this, because we're on Metallica, I'm going to play what Metallica sounded like when they were good. Because a lot of people don't know this because they started listening to Metallica off and Justice for All and the Black Album. This is what Metallica should and always should sound like. Let me unmute it. And I'm going to jump ahead here. But the things that you'll notice in that is the driving fucking music. The music charging, the bass was booming, the drums are that is fucking metal.
Right.
Metal is not nothing else matters.
So with that, I think probably the biggest, obviously there's two factors that changed Metallica forever. The first of which was firing Dave Mustaine before they recorded that album.
Yeah, because
if you don't know, the album is Kill 'Em All. Dave Mustaine, who went on to create Megadeth, was their guitarist before Kirk Hammett was there. He was unceremoniously fired the night before that they were supposed to start recording. They wake Dave up, hey, get the fuck out of here, you're fired. And they put him on a bus, and then he had to go from New York all the way to Los Angeles on this fucking Greyhound when he thought he was going to be recording an album.
Right. And the interesting note also is Dave Mustaine and Cliff Burton wrote the entire fucking album.
Yes. That
Dave Mustaine went on to take some of the songs from the album that he had wrote all of it and just changed up the words and played it on his own album because he wrote the shit.
right. He took the song Four Horsemen and wrote Mechanics, which is the same fucking song, just new tempo and new lyrics. And I kind of like it better.
I do too. And I gotta say, because we are talking about the pussification of metal, I went through and I listened to probably 3/4 of the album that Megadeth came out with in 2016 called Dystopia.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still, I'm going to say, still 80% true to his core.
You know, we'll just kind of encompass the big four right now. So if the big four, the thrash, Mount Rushmore, you got Metallica, you have Megadeth, you have Anthrax, and then you have Slayer. Jesus fucking Christ, my favorite of the four.
Right? Mine is Megadeth, yours is Slayer.
But you can pick any Megadeth album, and within a little bit, you can tell that it's a Megadeth album because of the guitar style and the vocals. You can pick any Slayer album, and you can instantly figure out this is a fucking Slayer album.
Right.
Anthrax, not so much. Metallica, not so much.
Right.
Anthrax. Well, we'll go into Anthrax in a minute. We're still on Metallica.
I want to point out. You mentioned the things that were the downfall of Metallica, and you missed the most important one.
Which was?
The death of Cliff Burton.
I only said the first one. I haven't gone to the second one yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I said let's get back to Metallica.
Yeah.
The first one was firing Dave Mustaine because that took them away from that kill 'em all edge. That album was written and was ready to record when they fired him. They toured on it. They recorded a couple more albums. They had a bus accident. Cliff Burton, their bassist, died. Now Cliff was kind of the creative driving force behind them. He was kind of the only human being on this planet that could keep the egos of Lars and James in check.
Yeah.
Because his talent they knew they were pretty much nothing without the talent of Cliff Burton.
Yeah.
After this, the first album that they record after this, and Justice for All, listen to it. Because you can't fucking hear the bass.
Right. But it was Cliff still wrote every song on that album.
But James, every time there's a YouTube video of the first engineer that was on this album, and every time James would come in and start listening to it, he's like, the bass is too loud. It's like, dude, it's I can't even hear it. He'd come in and the bass is too loud. So that guy actually got a hold of some of the tapes and remastered And Justice for All with the bass lines where they should have been, and you can hear it in its entirety on YouTube, and it's phenomenal. Now I like that album personally. I really do. But when you hear it remastered with the bass up, it's like listening to it for the first time.
Well, and also that album, and again, I'm going to say this one more time, that entire album was written by Cliff Burton. But it was also the most technically sound metal album. It was probably the closest you can get to classical music technicality wise. You know, I was a musician for years. I got out of musician because I got tired of the egos and got tired of having to rely on other people. Are they going to show up? Are they not going to show up? That's why I moved on to art.
Right. And then podcasting.
Right. Yeah, then podcasting. But the thing is, so that album is awesome, and the best song on that entire album is not one.
No.
It's the instrumental that I cannot remember the name of.
No, it's not Orion.
Not Orion. It's on Master.
Yeah.
To Live is to Die or something like that.
Yes.
But that was all. It was Cliff Burton was the master of instrumentals. And the thing is, what made metal was it wasn't just the driving beat, wasn't just the heavy, chunky guitars, wasn't these solos that everybody go into for 20 minutes. It was the constant changes. It wasn't the same three chords over and over and over through the entire song. It was constant changes. Go back and listen to In My Darkest Hour by Megadeth and count how many changes are in that song.
That is one of my favorite Megadeth songs.
Mine too.
And
you know,
and coincidentally, the song is about Cliff dying.
Yeah.
Which,
but you know, yeah, oh man, tapping on my heartstrings there. But
so one of my favorite things about that song is it's in the documentary The Metal Years, the Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years.
Right.
And it's like the theme song for that album, or
Right.
for that documentary.
And if you really want to know how talented Cliff Burton truly was, go back and listen to the bass solo, Anesthesia.
Yeah, Anesthesia pulling teeth from Kill 'Em All.
I mean, everybody thinks I'm a bass player. They're just that guy that stands there with four strings and a pick and goes dun 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 dun. Cliff didn't use a pick because he was a real fucking bass player. A real bass player doesn't use a pick. If you use a pick, you're compensating for a little dick. Any sound that you can make with a pick, I can make with my fingers on a bass. I don't care. But he not only would sit there and strum it with his fingers, but he would get into two-handed tapping in that song.
Yeah.
On a guitar, it's not easy on a guitar, but it's harder on a bass because of how thick the strings are.
Exactly. Now, the other thing that the difference between, now we're just talking the progression from one album to the next. We're talking from And Justice for All to the Black Album, which, I mean, granted, it was like 3.5, 4 years between the two, but the lyrics was the biggest thing for me. You go from having lyrics like justice is lost, justice is raped, justice is gone, pulling your strings, justice is done, seeking no truth, winning is all, finding so grim, so true, so real, to fucking nursery rhymes.
Yep.
You go from that to fucking nursery rhymes, and that's just scratching the surface of the power of the lyrics that are on And Justice for All. And then you go to the boogeyman under your goddamn bed. What the fuck is this?
Right. And, you know, this leads to the third worst decision they ever made, and that was hiring Bob Rock.
Oh, yeah. So Bob Rock actually was the producer on some of the albums later, but he was technically a bassist for them for a little brief period after Newsted quit.
Because he got smart.
Yeah. Newsted left and then went on and did some prog rock stuff, but then Newsted came out with an album called Metal. Now, if you've never listened to this album, go find the Newsted album Metal. It's fucking phenomenal. And the guitarist from Stain actually joined the band after the album was recorded. So he's with the band, but he's not on the album, on that first album anyway. But listen to the song Soldier Head. Then go listen to the song Hardwired by Metallica off their last album. And guess what? They stole it. Metallica stole that song. I loved it first when it was Soldier Head and it was by Newsted. It's a fucking great song. Hardwired, I listened to it, I was like, I really like this. And then it dawned on me, it's like, I liked it originally when it was fucking Newsted's song.
Right. And this is just showing you the egos of Lars and James. Newsted is one of the most talented bass players, and he could sing, he could do it all, but they wouldn't let him fucking write. And he came from a band, Flotsam and Jetsam, where he wrote some incredible fucking songs.
Exactly. Flotsam and Jetsam's first album had a song like Hammerhead, which is just great, but he wrote a lot of the stuff on one of my favorite metal albums of all time, the No Place for Disgrace album. He wrote a lot of the stuff that's on there, and that album still holds today. He didn't record the album because he moved on to Metallica before they recorded the album, but it's a fucking great album. And yet Newsted was extremely underrated and underutilized in that band.
Yeah.
Now, when they do Creeping Death and they allow Jason to sing, that song is so much better.
Oh, Search and Destroy, when he sang that, was so much better.
Exactly. And another, okay, part 4 to why Metallica now sucks is James's need to put in a yeah at everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did improv theater for a long time, and I did a bit on stage one time where I was James Hetfield and I was covering other songs. So people were throwing out different songs to me, like, the wheels on the bus go round and round. Yeah. And
right.
just randomly throw in that at any inopportune time. But if you go back and listen to their live stuff now, him singing like Master of Puppets and throwing that shit in there, it just, it's like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, it's fucking horrible. I mean,
I'm not paying $350 to go watch you fuck up your own songs.
Right. Yeah, it's leave your ego at the door. This is about making music. It's not about jerking off on stage. Again, I played music. I played in bands with guitarists who wanted to solo through everything, and I just basically called that public masturbation.
It's because that's what it is.
Yeah. They're just trying to get off, have everybody look at them, and basically destroy the fucking song you're playing.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not saying people like, Satriani and Steve Vai aren't extremely talented, because they are. But give me a Jeff Beck where I can feel that fucking solo. It's not all flash in the pan, but it's just holding out certain notes and it's slowing it down a little bit so you can feel everything. That's what I'm into.
That's why of all those like virtuoso guitarists, like that I can only watch and listen to so many of them, and especially they do like that. It's like the Big Five or whatever, the G Summit. That's what it's called.
Okay.
But there's a couple of those that I really like, but the one of those virtuosos that I like is Eric Johnson.
Yeah, he's really good.
His Cliffs of Dover song is, I can listen to that on a loop.
In the 80s, I was a big Yngwie Malmsteen's fan.
Yeah, so was I.
And he had flashy ones, but he had other ones where he showed emotion.
See, that's why I liked his instrumental trilogy, the OP5.
Yeah.
Off of it's one of these the song Trilogy, Jesus, the album Trilogy, where he's fighting a goddamn dragon on the front with a guitar. But it goes from him playing acoustic to playing electric back to acoustic, and it really shows growth compared when you go back to like his Rising album, which I think is just a big steaming pile of dog shit.
Right.
But
all right, let's go on. Okay, I'm done with Metallica. Fuck Metallica.
Okay, we've wasted enough time on those fucks. Loved your early stuff. Haven't really listened to anything since. I listen to it because you kind of go.
I remember when.
Let's put in Master.
Right.
So okay, another one of those type of bands. We talked about 3 of the 4 big 4. Let's Anthrax really quick.
Okay, the Anthrax to me, to sum it up, I told my wife this earlier. The funny, ironic thing about Anthrax is the most famous member is the rhythm guitarist.
Yeah.
Scotty,
how many other bands can you say that?
You can't. Well, I guess Metallica, but he's the vocalist too. But
yeah, if they don't sing, how many of those can you say?
Right. Well, Scott did
the drummer and the rhythm guitarist are the 2 most famous members of your band.
Yeah, Scott did do background vocals, but he was never the lead singer.
No. But the thing with Anthrax is when they did this like lineup shift, they got rid of Joey Belladonna, they got rid of Danny Spitz, they brought in John Bush from Armored Saint, he's a great vocalist. Armored Saint's a great band. Thought it would work. It didn't.
I liked it.
Their first album, 42?
Yeah, the one with "Just Don't Let Me Rest in Potters. I was born to. Yeah.
they had some really good albums there. But the thing I have a problem with Anthrax in this little time period, it was almost like they were chasing what everybody else was doing successful, but they were playing catch up.
Yeah.
And by the time that they listened to what other people were doing, tried to replicate it, everybody else had moved on.
Right.
So they're like a step and a half behind everybody. Then they bring Joey back, and Danny came back for like a reunion tour, and it was successful. And then they stayed with Joey. Danny went back to, he's like a watchmaker now.
Well, here's my issue with it. Anthrax, the Among the Living album, love the fucking album.
Oh yeah.
But Anthrax now with Joey has taken the route of Stephen Pearcy from Rat. He can't fucking sing anymore.
Not really, no.
His voice
has a lot of energy on stage, though. I can say that.
Yeah. But his voice sounds like he's been gargling glass for 20 years.
Yeah. He pretty much has.
Yeah. But I mean, and that stuff, singing the way that they do, does some damage to your vocal cords. So, I give him that, because he, back in the 80s, had a phenomenal fucking voice.
Oh, yeah.
The shit he did on those albums, and the stuff they wrote about. I was telling my wife about this earlier. For a mock rock, my friends and I were going to do Indians by Anthrax.
Mm-hmm.
And we got through the auditions. It got approved. When it was time for the mock rock, we go on stage, and they won't let us play that song.
Why?
Because of the nature of the song. Because it talks about Indians being slaughtered, put on reservations, and shit like this. My school's mascot was a warrior, a Native American with a headdress on.
I was going to say, wasn't your mascot the Warriors?
Yes.
So the song kind of would fit into the motif.
Right. But because it had such a negative connotation towards the white man.
Now they did have some, unlike, Metallica had a couple of okay albums. Death Magnetic was okay. Their latest album is okay. They're nothing compared to their first 3 or 4 albums. But Anthrax has actually had a couple good albums later.
Yeah.
Worship Music is a really good album.
Well, the one with Be All Enemies the End.
Yeah, that's yeah.
That, and one of my favorite lines from an Anthrax song is, "I drank 3 6-packs just so I could look at your face. Finally."
Yeah.
But they had a sense of humor, something that the other 3 didn't.
Right. See, and that's the one thing I'll give Anthrax is they brought they took away the necessity to be hard and mean and wear metal studs and not understanding the homophobic tones that the leather came from. I'll go into that in a second because it's actually kind of a funny story. But they were kids from New York.
Yeah.
They wore shorts. They wore T-shirts. They didn't take themselves serious. They just went out there and they had fun.
And they wrote about pop culture, like, I Am the Law from Judge Dredd and shit like that.
Exactly. And that's kind of what roped a lot of us in was, oh my God, they read the shit we read. That's awesome.
Right.
But then they're actually credited with creating the rap metal genre.
I can see that with I Am the Law.
Yeah, well, they did I'm the Man first.
Oh, that's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, they did I'm the Man, and then they went on to do what everybody knows, the cover tune of they did the Public Enemy song with Public Enemy.
Bring the Noise?
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you. Ticker's not as good as it used to be because it's not a ticker, it's a thinker. But for those that couldn't see me pointing to my head saying ticker, it's not my heart. Damn it. That's in my pants. But anyway.
I'm sorry. Laugh break.
So they came out and they created this whole fun vibe around metal. Metal didn't have to be aggressive and mean and serious, and they left that up to the death metal side.
Yeah.
There.
Well, they would write songs like, and I even stole the name for some game I played. The song is called Evil Nick and Fessin, yes. NFL. And what Evil Nick and Fessin is nice fucking life spelled backwards.
Yes. See, right there shows that they like to have fucking fun. And that was what I always, and I think that's why Anthrax is one of the big four instead of bands like Testament or Exodus.
Right.
Any of these other bands that are pretty fucking close, but not quite. Even though they had longer careers and better albums overall, that's why Anthrax is in that.
And it comes down to, there's a certain thing people are looking for. They have to have that it quality. Anthrax had the it quality.
Yes.
And people talk about that, and you're like, well, you see all these guys on The Voice, man, they got amazing voices, but they don't have a look that people can sell.
True. And that was something that they had over bands like Exodus and bands like Testament. Testament had Chuck Billy as a frontman. They had Alex Skelnick as a guitarist.
One of the most phenomenal fucking guitarists of all time.
Yes. But they didn't have the moxie that an Anthrax had. Now I want to talk about the leather thing real quick.
Okay.
So in the 80s, bands started wearing leather. Then they started wearing leather studs and leather caps and leather capes and leather trench coats and leather boots and all this other stuff.
Fringe.
They're all taking the lead from Rob Halford, the lead singer of Judas Priest. So Rob was the first one to start wearing like a leather vest, and then the leather vest was having studs. Yeah, hell bent for leather, and he started bringing in leather and more leather and more leather and more leather. Well, it comes out 15, 20 years later, Halford comes out as being homosexual.
Right.
He's an openly gay man in the metal world now. But because he's such an iconic figure, it's like people went, I don't give a shit. It's fucking Rob Halford. We finally hit that point in society where he wasn't shunned for it. He can be open about it, which is awesome. But at the same time, when you look at everything retroactively, all of these people were taking their cue from this metal god, Rob Halford. But where was he getting this look? From the gay bars that he was going to after shows in all these different cities. People started wearing leather in there, and he liked it, so he started wearing it. And so this metal moxie and so if you go back and you look at bands like especially like the German metal bands like Destruction and Creator and them, they're all like metal studded out with the bullet belts and all this shit. They easily could have walked in as a group into one of these clubs with Rob Halford and would have fit right in.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you bring up Rob Halford and Judas Priest, because Judas Priest, much like Pantera, started out more as they were borderline glam, with Turbo Lover and shit like that. Mm-hmm. And then they progressed to Painkiller.
That was a turning point, and because there's a lot of those bands, that were, because Priest's earlier albums are no harder than like a Deep Purple album or a Rainbow album.
Right.
They're along those same vein, and then they progressively got softer, because when you finally get to the Turbo album, there's fucking keyboards on it. And
right.
we know what keyboards do. They killed Van Halen.
Right.
When Van Halen hit their 1984 and they had they had keyboards in the song Jump. It's like, what the fuck is this? It's kind of a neat song, but and then next thing you know, Dave's gone, Sammy's in, band's done. I don't care what they I don't care how many albums they sold after that.
I'm sorry, I liked Sammy better. I could not stand David Lee Roth.
Nobody liked him, but it was fun.
He was fun. He was entertaining, and I gotta say, one time my band was playing a show at the local park here, and we were up on a raised stage, and our singer decided to try to do a David Lee Roth off the stage onto the floor and pulled a hammy. He crumpled on the floor.
That's our singer.
Yep. And we're like, he's a big dumb animal, ladies and gentlemen. And he's drunk as fuck.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, I mean, but going back to this stuff, and I want to kind of get back on track and talk about why, not just the big four, but why music has changed and how metal is no longer metal to me.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the constant changes, the changing tempos, the changing chords, and it's not just here's 3 chords, we're just gonna play them over and over again in different formations. It's constant changes. Like Megadeth were the kings of changes. Every song would have like 8 different changes, 9 different changes in it.
Mm-hmm.
But not only the changes, it was the charging, it was the beat, it was the double bass.
And well, if you want to know about the what kind of a musician Dave Mustaine is, there's Dave Navarro. Dave Lombardo is a great drummer. Dave Navarro has this YouTube thing. It came out years ago where he sits down with another guitarist and he tries to learn from him.
Okay.
And there's one he sits down with Dave Mustaine, and so he's like, well, obviously he starts showing something, and Dave does this thing which he calls a spider chord, and he's playing some stuff, playing like one of his older tunes, and does this thing, and then starts playing. It's like, whoa, 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 what was that? What was that? And Dave's been playing it for 30 years. That it didn't seem like it was anything to him, because he's like, oh, it's something I invented so I can get from this change to this change seamless. No, sure. Right. So the rest of the whole thing, it's like a 15-minute clip. Mustaine teaching him this what he called a spider chord.
Right.
And so just watch that, because a lot of people think Navarro's a good musician. He's been in enough bands where he's got some cred.
Yeah.
But seeing somebody who is a lot of other guitarists look up to, being blown away by somebody that most people just, when they hear the name Megadeth, they just kind of poo-poo the albums.
Right. But yeah, he was. I mean, my wife and I were talking about this earlier, and I kind of want to get into this aspect of it as well. Because I love Megadeth. Of the top 4, Megadeth is my number 1, because they had songs that hit home with me, and Dave was an incredible lyricist, an incredible musician, an incredible composer. Him and Cliff Burton could have been the same person, just one played bass and one played guitar.
Right. They could have been twins.
Yep. But then we were talking about voices, and we got down to what I consider iconic voices. Mm-hmm. And we have a generation. I mean, obviously, back in the 70s and 80s, Freddie Mercury from Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Bowie's got an iconic voice. Ozzy has an iconic voice. These are voices. When I say iconic, they cannot be mistaken for anybody else.
Dio. I would throw Dio in that group.
Yep. And then as we move up into the 80s, then I'm thinking, okay, even though I can't stand them anymore, Hetfield does have a voice that can't be mistaken. And that's loud because like, yeah.
Yeah.
But Dave Mustaine, iconic voice. Nobody sings like Dave Mustaine sings.
Right.
And also in the 80s, you had Sebastian Bach. They were borderline hair, borderline metal. They kind of stayed in between.
If you listen to his solo albums that came out after Skid Row, they're definitely more hard. They may be considered hard rock in a lot of groups, but they're definitely more metal than
Right.
some of the late, especially the most popular Skid Row album.
Right. And, then, so, and I'm sure I'm missing some from that area, but I want to kind of move on to.
Tom Araya is another iconic
Yep.
voice you can't mistake. Yeah,
Yep.
but there's a lot of them. Like Warrell Dane, I would throw in there, but you'd really have to know who he was. But you can't miss his voice.
Right. But then when I get into stuff that's a little bit more recent, the really only one that I can think of is Chad from Mudvayne.
Yeah.
Because everybody else, I'm sorry, but you put Disturbed, Five Finger Death Punch, and Godsmack on the stage and have all three of those guys singing, I couldn't tell them apart.
No. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this could say, well, what about Corey Taylor? And I'm sorry, great voice, but it's not iconic. It's definitely his, but
yeah.
I wouldn't put it up there with an Ozzy. I wouldn't put it up there with a Dio,
And this is hard for me to say because I love Corey Taylor. He is one of my favorites. But again, I've got to agree with you. He doesn't have a voice that you just hear and go, oh, that's Corey Taylor.
Yeah.
If you hear Chad from Mudvayne singing with Hell Yeah or with Mudvayne, you're like, that's the Mudvayne dude.
Exactly.
Or here's the best example of iconic voice to me. And Lane Staley from Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
Because nobody sounds like that. I've heard him, when he's singing alone, because a lot of times in Alice in Chains, you don't just have Lane singing, but you have, what's his face, guitar player. Gary Cantrell doing melodies and harmonies underneath it. And those two together are just goddamn phenomenal.
Yeah.
But Lane had the most hauntingly beautiful voice that made you feel everything he wanted you to feel through that song.
Yes.
And you cannot mistake anybody else for Lane. Everybody's tried. Another one in that same era, Chris Cornell.
Yeah, may they both rest in peace.
Yep.
So
they were my saviors in the 90s because I listened to the Sap album by Alice in Chains over and over after my mom passed away. It helped me get through her death because Lane emotes so well. And if you don't know what emotes means, that means when someone sings their emotions, it makes you feel them.
Yeah. The one thing that I would say, I always tell the story about Soundgarden, because you brought up Cornell. So I lived in Seattle in the late 90s, like 96 to like 99. And I had this, it was a ground floor apartment, but everything in Seattle is on a hillside, essentially, especially when you get on the one side of the river, so the one side of I-5, which is basically a concrete river. But so the one side of our apartment was actually almost below the height of the sidewalk. There was a path that went around our building, but then there was like a concrete wall, and then there was a sidewalk. And it was a busy street. It's Bellevue. If anybody knows Seattle, knows Bellevue is it's just shitloads of people that live there. I'm sitting there, I'm watching MTV, and they announce the news break. Tabitha Soren comes on and says, horrible news out of Seattle. I'm like, oh my God, what? Soundgarden's broke up. And it's silent. I've never heard silence. Even at like 4 a.m, you could hear something, a car horn, a car drive by, people walking, something. There was like a moment of silence right after she said that Soundgarden had broke up. It was weird.
And we're not going to mention that other band from Seattle because I've got no respect for them.
Well, so there's a huge difference between their Bleach album and the commercialization of them.
Yeah.
You go back and you listen to Bleach, today I still say it's a phenomenal punk album. Nevermind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
the Weird Al versions of those songs are better. I'll just say that.
But they're not metal, so
yeah.
So I'm going to talk about why this pissed me off so much.
All right, I've been waiting.
So, again, the Metallica shit. Megadeth stayed true. Slayer pretty much stayed true.
Slayer
Anthrax.
had one album where they had the Diabolica Musica, and they kind of did this experiment with kind of like a new metal thing, but everybody forgot that album.
Okay.
So.
But Anthrax pretty much stayed true.
Mm-hmm.
After they figured out their lineup changes and stuff. But then you've got bands that came out in the 90s. Like, and I love this song so much. Mud Shovel by Stained.
Okay.
Great fucking song. You know, it was dark, it was heavy, it was singy, it was screamy, you know, it was good. And then you go from that to, it's been a while since I whined and moped around this stage. Fucking pussy, shut up, you whiny bitch. You made $17 million. We don't fucking care.
Yeah.
And this goes back to Metallica. I blame Metallica for all this because they started this fucking trend with the Unforgiven and nobody gives a shit about what matters.
It was almost, see, I think with Nothing Else Matters and the Unforgiven, I think those are like extensions of the hair bands having to do a power ballad.
Right.
Like every single one of those fucking bands had to have that like middle school dance song.
Right.
Like Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue.
Yeah. That's actually what started, because Heather and I were talking about that. I'm like, you know, it's fucking Motley Crue and Home Sweet Home that started this shit.
You know, everybody had to have one after that. And it's like, you know what, Warren, you don't need, your songs suck anyway. Why do we need this? We don't need it from Winger. We don't need it from, you know,
right.
Poison. We don't need it.
Right. Well, and the thing is, you want to hear a ballad, a good ballad, go listen to Testament's song, The Ballad.
Right? Yes.
And it's a ballad, but it's not a fucking love song like you would think. It's a great fucking tune that has meaning.
Yeah. Now, I'm glad you brought up Testament real quick, because Testament, and we talked about Alex Skelnick a little bit earlier being like just one of the most phenomenal guitar players ever.
Yeah.
But I saw them at a few integral points in their career. I saw them when they were on the New Order tour, which, if you don't know, was like their second or third album. And they opened for Slayer, which in 97 was the first time a band had made a tour with Slayer without ever being booed off stage.
Right.
So the band Testament, that shows you the testament of this band. So punny there, huh? Anyway.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought it, because I saw them in Grand Rapids. And I saw them, and you'll appreciate this. I saw them with a band called Annihilator that had a song, Alice in Hell, which was a ripoff of Alice in Wonderland. Decent song, but the rest
Jeff
of
Waters I'll say this about Jeff Waters, the guitarist from highly underrated.
Yeah, but the rest of their songs are pretty much forgettable. I couldn't remember anything else.
Yeah.
Then the next band that comes on, at the time, their name has changed since then, but they were called the Wrathchild of America.
Oh, yeah.
They were awesome. They were like at the beginning of grunge, but this was still in the 80s. This was like 87, 88. And then Testament, and this was the album The Ballad was on, is what I saw. I really wish I would have saw them on the Souls of the Black tour, because that song was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Look at the lost souls. They're skin so black.
I saw them open for Judas Priest on that tour.
Wow.
But yeah, it was them, Megadeth, and Judas Priest. But so Alex Skelnick at one point actually quit the band to go. He wanted to do some side stuff. He wanted to play jazz. Yeah. So when he left the band, I saw them with they replaced him with James Murphy, who was, if you don't know who James Murphy is, he was pick a disease that's a name of a band, and he was in it. He was in Cancer, he was in Death, he was in Coroner, he was in all these bands. Just phenomenal guitar player. Ended up, unfortunately, he died of cancer shortly after I saw him. But the band went through this whole change where Murphy was in the band, then he got sick, and then Peterson, who was their rhythm guitarist, stepped over and started playing all the lead stuff. So Then they brought in another lead or another rhythm guitarist. Peterson continued playing all the Skelnick parts. Then years later, Skelnick rejoins the band. Well, now Peterson is almost as good as Skelnick is. So if you listen to their latest album, especially the Brotherhood of the Snake or Native Blood, it's light years away from where they started, and it's so much better because you're listening to solos and you know that's Skelnick, but then you listen to this other solo and it's like, damn, you're fucking good too. So because if you listen to everything through Souls of Black, Skelnick did every solo.
Yeah,
everything was him. Now they like trade off, and the band actually became musically so much better for him leaving for a while.
Well, I want to go back to, we talked about egos, and that is a great example of somebody putting their ego to the side for the betterment of the band.
Yeah.
You know,
and I saw them on Slayer's final tour there when they came through. Testament was one of the opening bands for him, and Skelnick now looks like Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, where she's got the gray streak in her hair.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, the other great thing I liked about Testament is when they formed, I don't know about the guys that came in and out, but they were all Native Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And they were proof that, you know, no matter what climb of life you come from, you can crawl out of it. Yeah.
And they do a lot of good for the Native American community. If you listen to the song Native Blood, they do a lot of charity work. They do a lot of good for, you know, like just getting the word out there about their culture.
Right. And, you know, I'm not saying that Native Americans are bad people. I'm just saying that during that time frame, they were pretty much relegated to reservations, dirt poor. Mm-hmm. You know, the reservations looked like inner cities.
Yeah.
And you know, granted, they've come a long way since then, and I'm so happy for them. But to be able to rise above that and to make a name for yourself, and then turn around and do good for your people, to me, you can't do any better.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Now, I want to go back to I credited, and a lot of other people credit Anthrax for creating the rap metal genre.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, that also gave rise to bands like Linkin Park and Limp
Bizkit.
And now, when I was 22 and drank a lot, Chocolate Starfish was a cool album. No, but then when I sobered up, I went, no, it wasn't.
If I want to listen to rap metal, I would listen to, you know, Anthrax, obviously, or Faith No More.
Yeah, listen to the song Epic on repeat.
Yep. I mean, it wasn't necessarily metal, but those were a bunch of extremely talented musicians all together.
Yeah, and well, that was the thing about Faith No More too, is like they were pretty it's hard to describe Faith No More because they're Faith No More. They did this whole, like, they would have 11 different genres of music on the same album.
Yeah, they'd have metal, they'd have funk, they would have pop, they would have rap, they would have jazz. You know, you name it, they put it on there, except for country. I don't think I ever heard country.
No, but they'd have like a Lionel Richie cover right next to a Black Sabbath cover.
Right.
You know, on the same album.
Yeah, but my favorite is when they're covering the Black Sabbath song. What song did they do? Was it War Pigs? And at one point he just sings the lyrics, just goes blah 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 blah.
Right.
Little rabbit hole. I was living in Florida. In my 20s, a buddy talked me into going to Florida, and we lived in a car there for 2 months in January and February. We would shower on the beach every day, go to these labor companies that paid you every day, and then we'd spend our evenings in the nightclub, and we were down by the Fort Lauderdale area.
Okay.
we go to this nightclub called The Edge, I want to say it was, and it had an indoor dance club, and outdoors they had a band, and you could go back and forth. And the cool thing was, it wasn't a top 40 nightclub. This was an alternative music nightclub. That's what they called shit back then.
Uh-huh.
That's what Faith No More would have been considered back then. Yes. Alternative music. They had a band outside that reminded, I could have swore it was Faith No More. You know, similar sound. This guy is swinging upside down on a rope singing a song about his grandmother. And it sounded like Mike from Faith No More.
Nice.
But they were awesome. But then I go back inside. I'd bounce back and forth just because you get the good music that you know, then you hear good music that you don't know. It was awesome. You don't have that shit anymore.
No. The thing about Mike Patton from Faith No More is he went on to, I mean, he's one of these people that created several other bands like Mr. Bungle, which is a great band. But he created a lot of these other little bands. And he's actually, I can't remember the name of it. But he's in a band he created with King Buzzo from the Melvins and Dave Lombardo from Slayer fame.
Okay. And I'll find it while you talk about it.
And it's, if you don't know the Melvins are pretty out there. Dave Lombardo has been in Slayer. He's been in, he's in Grip Incorporated. He's been in a bunch of other little bands too. But this isn't like anything you've ever heard. It's closer to Rush meets Top 40. That's skull fucks a Britney Spears tune.
Was it Phantomas?
Yes, okay. Phantomas. I missed out on seeing them live because my buddy calls me one night and say, "Hey, what are you doing tonight? I've got an extra ticket to Phantomas. You're going." I say, "I can't." He says, "Why?" I said, "I'm in Las Vegas, and and the show's in Portland." So I was like, "I can't make it." He goes,
"Right.
That's the only reason you can't go."
Well, and you mentioned something, and I can't believe I forgot this when we were talking about iconic voices, but Geddy Lee from Rush.
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt, one of the best concerts I've ever been to was a night with Rush at the Joe Louis Arena. It was around 2007, and it was an hour and a half of just Rush.
Nice. See, yeah. I didn't see the show, but my brother did. He went and saw Rush with Primus as the opening band.
Wow.
And my brother's a big fan of both.
Right.
And the guys that he went didn't give two shits about Primus going into the show. Coming out, my brother was saying all the Rush fans were talking about Primus and all the Primus fans were talking about Rush.
Right. That's awesome.
I went to one other show like that where it was the first time I saw Slipknot, but I really wanted to go because the band Lamb of God was opening for them.
Right.
And it was the same thing. All the Lamb of God fans were talking about the show Slipknot put on. All the Slipknot fans were talking about how fucking awesome Lamb of God is.
Right. And, it's funny you bring that up because, okay, again, this is what metal should sound like. Everybody, listen up. That is Slipknot. And again, same thing. Never saw Slipknot. Didn't know much about them. Went to this rock fest down at Pine Knob, which is now called DTE. But anybody who grew up in my era is going to call it Pine Knob.
It's one of those amphitheaters with the lawns. They have them all over now.
And there was 3 stages. It's the first time I ever saw a Five Finger Death Punch. Saw them on the small stage.
Mm-hmm.
Slipknot headline. I never saw them before, and I was able to get up against the gate up high and be able to look down and watch the show. Holy fuck. We're talking about, there's like 10 guys in this band. There's like 6 fucking drummers.
Yeah. There's one guy in a clown mask that just runs around with a baseball bat hitting beer kegs.
And, watching these guys play was just awe-inspiring. The energy they put into it. This is, unfortunately, they don't really make music anymore. Because Corey Taylor was bounced between them and that other band he did with the slower stuff.
Yeah.
And I understand his reasoning for doing it, but I'd rather listen to, Duality or Psychosocial. And they even did their own ballad, Snuff, But you know, I want that chargy. You know, I want something that I can get up in the morning, pop on, and it's going to wake me up for the day.
Yeah. See, that's why I gravitate towards the genre of thrash. Now, there are still some really, really good thrash bands out there. There's Municipal Waste, there's Toxic Holocaust, and Lich King. Those are just three of bands that are just out there waving the fucking thrash flag around there. DRI is still touring. I mean,
Are they really?
yeah, I just saw them about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
So it's like that's a genre that's always it. Whenever I'm in a mood, I just throw on something in that genre and I'm happy.
Okay. There is a band that a guy at work turned me on to. They're called the Butcher Barbies.
Oh,
and here I'm gonna hold on a second. I want to get this going up first because I don't want copyright stuff. No, just getting the music. Still not into it.
The Butcher Babies?
Yeah. What the fuck is this even a song? But, you know, again, driving fucking music.
And if you ever get the chance to see them live, do it. I saw them open for the Misfits it was Hatebreed. Saw them open for Hatebreed a couple years ago in a small club in Seattle called Studio 7. Shout out, we're not getting paid for that, but it's a fun club to see shows at. They're two just tiny little women with just powerful voices that just come out there and just fucking blow your dick off.
When I went and saw Slipknot, there was another band, this tiny little redhead girl singing Walls of Jericho.
Okay.
Holy shit, her voice would blow you out of the water. It was so phenomenal. But, you know, going back to here's a good concert, a horrible way to line it up. Okay, I went because I had to see Mudvayne.
Okay.
Mudvayne's headliner. The other two bands are 10 Years and Snot.
All right.
Now, 10 Years, they would start out as kind of like a surfer rock band, then turned into like an emo band. Snot, fucking hardcore.
Okay.
And this is the new singer after the old singer had died and whatever. So they open with Snot, so you're like, yeah! Then they go to 10 Years. And it's like, and I like 10 Years. I like their songs, but when you're built up and then you're brought down, and then fucking Mudvayne comes out and Chad comes out in the fucking gorilla costume, and they're just, you know, it's just, you know, build it up. I mean, I kept talking to my wife about this. This is the difference between the 80s metal and today's metal. In the 80s, they knew how to build the song up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some would start a little bit slow, some would start, you know, kind of heavy, then they would get heavier, but they would build up. Now it's just, dun, 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 dun. You know, it's like Mary Had a Little Fucking Lamb over and over again.
Right. So going back to the powerful women's voices real quick, Sister Sin is another really, really good band that's got a powerful female singer.
Okay.
But I saw them it was the last of the Mayhem tours. Slayer was the headliner. King Diamond was right before them. But on the small stage outside, because it was another one of those lawn amphitheaters, they had one stage outside of the amphitheater, and then the four main acts were inside the amphitheater.
Right.
And outside you had Sister Sin was one. Feed Her to the Sharks, which is a great Australian band. They're a lot. If you've ever heard Parkway Drive, they're really similar to that band.
Okay.
So along the same lines as if you've ever heard of like Miss May I or Motionless in White, it's that kind of grindcore type of band. But they're so much fun. They all come out with this shirt with a shark logo on it, but they cut them different ways.
Okay.
But just the name of the band, Feed Her to the Sharks.
Right.
It's awesome. Then Killing Candace, which is kind of like a knockoff version of like Slipknot. And there was a couple other really good bands that were, Jungle Rot. Oh my God, how did I forget Jungle Rot? That's a great, if you've never heard that band, go check them out. They're fucking awesome, Jungle Rot.
Okay.
But so yeah, everybody was in this just fucking ball of energy because you're just in this little intimate setting, sitting outside next to the fucking concession stand, next to the bathrooms, watching these bands just play the shit out of these songs. And then you go in and you sit around and you wait for an hour till Devil Wears Prada comes out. And the crowd is looking around going, they're on stage. Okay. All right. So, okay, now they're done. Oh, yeah. All right. Hell yeah. Hell yeah's the next band. Fucking Vinnie Paul up there. Chad. Yeah. Let's go. And if you're the band Hell Yeah, you have an album called Hell Yeah with a song called Hell Yeah. You play that fucking song.
Right.
They didn't play any of it. They didn't play anything off that album. No Alcohol and Ass. None of that stuff. So, yeah, nothing from that album. Everybody was so pissed off. Then King Diamond came out. The sun started setting, and it's like you forgot about the last hour and a half of bullshit waiting for King Diamond, and then the fucking curtain drops and fucking flares on stage. But
I introduced my wife to King Diamond today.
Nice.
I'm like, this dude used to be an opera singer. Now listen to him.
Yeah.
There's no presents, not this Christmas.
So, I have to tell this little story. So Craig and he still lives in the area. I grew up in mid-Michigan, and he and I went to Pittsburgh at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. So from where we live in mid-Michigan all the way to Pittsburgh, it was like, what, 7.5, 8 hours?
Yeah.
And multiple times on the trip there and back, because we'd come home for a holiday and then drive back, whatever. We listened to them and Conspiracy back to back. And they're two concept albums, and one's like Halloween 1 and the other one's Halloween 2. So it's like basically this long ass story. Listen to both sides of those cassettes multiple times.
Yeah, I believe I traded my my Them album, my Them CD for your My Sister's Machine CD.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah,
Wallflowers. That's an underrated Seattle band.
It really is. It really is. But yeah, I need to talk about the concert that you and I went to together.
Okay.
So Jason and I go to this concert, and at the time I'm working at this place, and this lady talks us into taking their two 16-year-old kids with us.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, just don't let them in the mosh pit. We're like, okay. So we took them to see Typo Negative and Pantera. We couldn't keep them out of the mosh pit.
Nope.
But it's like, what you said was Hell Yeah. I wanted to fucking hear Cemetery Gates. And, he's up there going, we ain't fucking playing Cemetery Gates.
Yeah. That was at the Civic Center, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the kids got his shirt ripped, and we had like, tell your mom it got caught in my car door.
That was one of the things I remember about that was the late great Pete Steele. He was the lead singer and the driving force behind Typo Negative and another band, Carnivore. But the man was like 6'8".
Yeah.
Huge. And his bass looked like a toy in his hand. And he came out and he's got a bottle in his hand. And it looks like a 12-ounce beer bottle, but it is a full-size Sutter Home wine bottle. And he's drinking this thing on stage, and he finishes the whole bottle in the 45-minute set that they had. While singing and playing the show, he still manages to polish this whole bottle of wine off.
Well, and another way to, talk about Peter Steele is this guy would also, the stand-up basses and stuff like that, he would wear that, strap it on like a regular bass, and it looked like a regular bass on him. That's how big this motherfucker was.
Right. Right.
And if you're not a Typo Negative fan, you need to go and check their shit out because they have some phenomenal fucking songs. And they did some of the best remakes because they made them their own.
Yes. Exactly.
Go
And
listen to their version of Cinnamon Girl, you know, and Summer Breeze.
yes, I love Summer Breeze, and they have the best song about hair dye
Yes.
ever.
Yes. I am back.
So, see, those are the things that I enjoy about the genre of. I mean, because the genre of metal is huge. I mean,
Yeah.
there are so many subgenres of metal that you could be a metal fan and not even know it.
Exactly.
I mean, hell, there's something called Shakespeare rap or Shakespeare metal. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, there's a couple bands that like sing in Shakespeare.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's all. I mean, if you think of it, it's a genre of metal. So
Right.
somebody has done it. And
right. Okay. I need to get us back on track.
Okay.
Because our whole goal is to talk about the pussification of metal, not about the shit that we enjoy.
Yeah. Okay. So the things that I don't enjoy, and I don't enjoy things like Christian death metal. I don't like oxymoronic bullshit like that.
Right.
If you're singing about the blood of Christ, I don't want to hear you talk about the blood of Christ. Yeah, I don't need that. None of your churchgoers are going to listen to this either. Okay, you're not converting anybody, and when they find out that you're doing this shit, you're going to be shown as a fraud, and then nobody's going to like you. Ask Striper.
Yeah.
You know, Striper didn't hide it. They came out as a fraud later when they got rid of the. If you know who Striper was, they're a Christian hard rock band. They had like Bible verses on their albums and shit. They wore yellow and black, but they dropped the whole Christian thing and wore blue and black. And we went, that's still you.
Yep.
You know, I'll say Oz Fox, their guitarist, is actually I've seen him in other stuff. He's actually a really phenomenal guitar player, but it's just what you're doing.
Right. And if you're going to do something like that, do it like Typo Negative did. I mean, he's like, Jesus Christ looked like me. Jesus Christ. And then turns on going, loving you is like loving the dead. But anyways, so I want to bring us up to what people consider metal now. Now, when you think of metal, people now think of bands like Five Finger Death Punch and Disturbed and Godsmack.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is how Five Finger Death Punch started. Now, everybody needs to listen. Song called Stranger Than Fiction. It's drivey, chargy. It gets you going, or The Bleeding and shit like that. Their first album was pretty fucking heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Drums, and it's, and now they're fucking covering. They're now just a cover band.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean,
and they're covering they're taking like the Offspring song, which wasn't very fast in the beginning, and making it slower and a dirge, and not even a dirge of the quality of like Typo Negative did.
Yeah, and so the very first time I ever heard of Five Finger Death Punch, it was at what's that? The Vans Festival. What the fuck's that called? Warped Tour.
Okay.
And there's a place out here near Portland called Columbia Meadows, which basically is a field in the middle of fucking nowhere. And for some reason, they used to have a lot of concerts out here. Thank God they got away from that shit. But what they would do, what they did was they had this huge fenced off area, and that was the beer garden. But if you've ever been to a Warped Tour, there's like 2 stages for every, like, there's 2 main stages, there's 2 side stages, there's 2 these stages. So one band's playing on this one while they're setting up on this one. It's kind of a cool thing that they do. But where Five Finger is playing at the stage that's right next to the beer garden, and me and some friends were all in there. They kick off, and it's like, first of all, I like the name of the band. That's pretty fucking cool. So everybody in the beer garden walked towards the fence, was watching this band. Coheed and Cambria was the next band to play. When they started, there was nobody even looking at the fence, let alone looking at the stage on the other side of the fence.
Right.
So they had a lot of energy
Yeah.
When I first saw him, and that's what drew me to him, was seeing him live for the first time.
Well, now, and I will, in their defense, I will say, because Ivan Moody, their singer Ivan Moody did have to have surgery on his vocal cords.
Mm-hmm.
So I can kind of understand their lightening up, but I don't. To me, they're not even hard rock; they're just rock.
They're like a rock cover band now.
Yeah, and Disturbed the same way. Their first album was fucking awesome.
Yeah, you're right. That's another band that did like a 15 million covers.
Right.
And
why?
And I'm sorry. Richard Cheese's version of "Down with the Sickness" is better.
I've never heard it, but
he's if you've ever seen the remake of Dawn of the Dead, where there's the lounge version of it, get up and get down with the sickness. Richard Cheese is the guy that does all the lounge versions of those songs.
So another band that pissed me the fuck off, Black Label Society. I used to really, if you don't know, Black Label Society was formed by Zakk Wylde, who used to be Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist. And then Ozzy kicked him out for drinking too much or whatever. So he goes and forms Black Label Society, looks like a biker and blah, blah, blah. Started out really good, heavy songs. They're coming out with a new album this year, and I watched the first video from this song. The song is called Bored to Tears. The song and the video bored me to fucking tears, and I had to turn it off. I was like, this is shit. This sounds like you're trying to reinvent the 80s and trying to look like a biker at the same time, but I'm like, you might as well just start carrying around Barbie dolls while you're at
it. So the one thing I'll say about Black Label is their album Mafia it's great. It is awesome. And this was, I don't know, 10 years ago. So my son was 10, 12 years ago, something like that. We're at a Portland Trailblazers game, and they're playing the Detroit Pistons in Portland. And there's this guy in a suit standing out at mid court holding a white guitar that's got black swirls on it.
Okay.
Now, I'm there with my brother and his girlfriend and my son. My son was only like 5 or 6 at the time. And I lean over to my brother and go, you know who plays a guitar like that? He's like, who? I go, Zakk Wylde. And then not 5 minutes later, they said, playing our national anthem from Black Label Society, Zakk Wylde. And he came out and played the national anthem. We're like, what the fuck is this? I didn't even realize. See, that's the other thing about Black Label is like, it's one of those bands that would come around a lot, but I'd find out like the day before or the day after the show.
Right.
I found out that Black Label was playing in Portland because I saw him fucking play the national anthem.
Well, and I'm not trying to take away from the talent that he has, because I really dug his earlier stuff, and he is extremely talented.
Oh yeah.
And he also has the ability to emote, like his song "The River," about the passing of somebody. I can't remember what it's about.
It's about the passing of dime bag.
That's it. I knew it was somebody important like that. But it's a really heartfelt song, and you listen to that and you're like going, damn, this is good. And then he comes out with Bored to Tears, and now you've bored me to fucking tears, which I don't want to be bored, so I'm just gonna turn it off and go find something else. Go back to your roots. Try to figure out something else to do that you love instead of trying to just fucking make money. You already have money. You made millions off your other fucking albums. Just do what makes you happy. This shit can't make you happy because you look bored to fucking tears in the video. You look like you hated what you were doing. And so if that's the case, what's the point? Why do it? I digress. But, going back to, I was trying to look at some new music. So I found the song, I don't know if the band's name is Grotesque or Dealer, but I tried checking them out because I heard a little clip that gave me some hope. So I go and find the song. I listen to it. Lost all hope in modern music. I hate saying that because I sound like my parents going, "No, turn that shit off." But man, give me something original. Give me something that's gonna make me want to move. You know, like I love listening to music while I'm working out. You get tired of listening to Walk all the time, or Cowboys from Hell, or Broken. You know, great songs, but I want to have a differing playlist to keep me moving. I don't want to have to sit there and listen to the same fucking songs over and over while I'm working out. But if anybody on here that works out knows, you need something that gets you going so you can power your way through that workout. Try to hit that runner's high. But yeah. So, have you heard that song Dealer? The song is either Dealer or Grotesque, and the band's name is either Grotesque or Dealer.
No.
Okay, so I found a YouTube video about the best new metal band, the metal songs coming out, and so he played a little clip from that, so it made me search for it because the clip gave me some hope. Listened to it, lost all hope.
That sucks.
Yeah. So
here's some. I'm gonna kind of hijack us for a second.
That's cool.
One thing that fucking bothers me about metal is bands that are continuing on that basically have nobody original in it.
Yeah.
So I saw the band Napalm Death. They were on that same Slayer farewell tour. It was Napalm Death, Testament, Anthrax, Lamb of God, and Slayer. There's not a single original member of Napalm Death left.
So change the name.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, granted, like one of them has been there pretty much since the beginning, but not actually from the beginning.
It's kind of like Wasp, the ever-revolving door of everybody but Blackie Lawless.
Right, exactly. And to a certain extent, Megadeth is the same way.
Yeah.
And
Dave Ellefson comes in and out and in and out and in and out.
Yeah. You know, so they did that quite a bit. But Dave is be like Dave leaving and somebody else stepping in, and Ellefson is, or not even that, the brothers, the bassist and the two guitarists or whatever they are, the brothers that are in the band now.
Okay.
If they were to take over the band and find another singer that kind of sounds like Dave and just keep going from there. Or I think it's a guitarist and a drummer.
Probably.
They're brothers. And then Ellefson plays bass and Dave is guitar.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, kind of like, yeah, because, I mean, pretty much when you listen to Wasp was Blackie Lawless, really. Because, I mean, he was one of those people that could play any instrument and wrote all the music and everything else. Mm-hmm. He played bass for a while. He played guitar for a while. He would jump back and forth. But, yeah, it's like, but he, again, had a voice that was recognizable.
Yeah.
And, you know, you take the voice out of the band, it's no longer that band.
It's kind of along the same lines as the band The Misfits.
Yeah.
So if you don't know anything about The Misfits, the first couple Misfits albums with Glenn Danzig were Glenn Danzig. The album is him. He wrote it, produced it, and recorded all the instruments on it.
Right.
So it's Glenn. So he leaves the band, creates Danzig, and does his own thing from there. But Doyle comes in and takes over the vocals, and then some of the members are just shuffled around. Then Jerry Only's a member of the band at the time with Doyle. Then Doyle leaves, Jerry Only takes over the vocals, and the band is still going.
Right.
Now, Jerry wasn't around when Glenn was. He was only kind of around when Doyle was. So it's like, and Doyle was kind of handpicked by Glenn, I guess, is the story that I heard. But I mean, it was fun to see the Misfits, but what I'm looking at on stage is not the Misfits.
Right.
Now, they did do 2 shows, like last Halloween or the Halloween before, where they had Jerry, Doyle, and Glenn on stage at the same time.
Right.
They did one show in Denver, of all fucking places, and then Chicago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that would be like watching The Who without, you know, Pete Townsend or Roger Daltrey.
Right.
You know, without those two, there's nothing. You know, so if you change those two out, it's like, okay, who is this? Why are you calling yourselves the Who?
But then there's bands that never really got their due, but basically the lineups are the same and they're still fucking going. And one of those bands that I'm going to play a little bit from, it's a band that I know you used to like back in the day because of the album The Dark.
Yeah.
But fucking Metal Church is still going to this day. And these guys are... That's a little excerpt from a song called By the Numbers from one of their recent album.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it just came out. They look old as fuck in it, but it's a great album. They're still fucking doing it. And I wish bands that are trying to be metal today would pick up the flag from a band like Metal Church.
Right.
Remember, there's a music festival I saw, like, had to have been like 91, 92, something like that, because I was still in high school. And it had it was headlined by Alice Cooper. It was Alice Cooper, Judas Priest, Dangerous Toys was on the thing, Metal Church, and somebody else. Metal Church was Dangerous Toys open, then Metal Church, then somebody else. But this was from it was Blessing. It had to have been Blessing in Disguise because the song The Badlands was
awesome
there. When they came out and they started playing, it was almost like they just pushed play on the CD.
Wow.
They sounded exactly like they did on the album. It was the cleanest, the most crisp, most tight set I've ever seen of any band I've ever seen in my life.
That's awesome. It's funny you brought up Metal Church because I introduced my wife to Metal Church today.
Oh, nice.
Because I played, because, you know, I was trying to show her why this shit was pissing me off. So I'm like, listen to this song. I played, you know, parts of Watch the Children Pray from the beginning and then the chorus. You know, really, you know, slow, dark beginning, then that chorus is, watch the children pray, save us, God, to, you know, and so then jump up and start playing the Badlands for her. And I'm like, listen to this. And just listen to it. I'm like, then I jumped ahead to that bass interlude in it. I'm like, that interlude makes that fucking song to me. It's a great song.
Oh, yeah.
Interlude, when especially watching the video, this dude's just walking across the desert playing his bass.
Yeah. I listened to that song while driving through the Badlands in South Dakota once.
Nice. But the guys got a great voice. They have the best fucking music. And like you said, they're underrated. They never got their due.
Yeah. I would love for the Bunny Rabbit's Hole to sponsor a festival of bands that should have been bigger. Like them and Halloween.
Halloween. Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, there's I'm sure we could come up with a whole list of them.
Rat Child America, also known as Souls to Zero.
Yeah.
You know, and that CD I traded you for. Now I forgot.
Oh, yeah, the My Sister's Machine.
Yeah. I mean, or even bands that, if you get tribute bands for like the ones that cover like Mother Love Bone tunes.
Yeah.
You know, another extremely underrated band.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's sad that guy passed. And if anybody's watched the movie Singles, that movie was a tribute to the singer from Mother Love Bone who passed away from drug overdose. That
underrated band.
Yes.
Underrated.
Just go out and listen to the song "Clo Dancer, Crown of Thorns," and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
There's a lot of these bands that actually change midstream that I wasn't necessarily pissed off about, but I know people that were pissed off about it. Like, case in point, the band Corrosion of Conformity.
Yeah.
So I've always been I was a big fan of Corrosion of Conformity from their second album. When I had to go back and find their first album because, you know, back then you go to places like we had in Alma, we had the Sound Depot, and then there was that one music store there, Mount Pleasant, that was right out there by the football stadium.
Full Moon Records.
Yeah.
Or Warehouse.
Warehouse. It was warehouse. So my friends and I, we'd basically go into Warehouse and walk around, and it's like we're buying stuff and hoping, dreaming that what you bought was right, because there was no Spotify, there was no Apple Music, there was no Google Music. You couldn't just try it out. You know, like now I go see a band that opens for somebody that I've never seen before, and I have their entire CD collection on Spotify usually before I leave usually before I leave. And with Corrosion of Conformity, their first couple bands their first couple albums are fucking, you know, they're basically hardcore punk.
Right.
And then their third album, Blind, kind of changes a little bit. They kind of get more towards a metal sound. But then when their third album came out, their third album is the one that had their song. I'm trying to it's the one it's Deliverance. Had Albatross and Clean My Wounds.
Yeah, that was almost like grunge metal.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were mad when that album came out. They thought that I see. I liked it too. I really liked that album too, and I was a big fan of the earlier albums. But there was one time that when a band progressed, I was right there with them. I'm like, oh, I like what you're doing.
Right.
But then I couldn't tell you a fucking album after that.
Right. Yeah, and see, that was, you know, I love Mudvayne, and I keep going back to them. I love Mudvayne, and when Chad left and they formed Hell Yeah, I loved Hell Yeah. I only know that first album. I never heard anything from the other album.
See, when I saw them, I hadn't heard the new album either. That's why I didn't know a fucking thing they did.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's any good or not, but, you know, and here's a good idea. If you're looking at the members of the band and they say guitarist, drummer, singer, blah, 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 this is how you know they're metal. If their drummer looks like he weighs about 95 pounds soaking wet, they're fucking metal, because playing drums and doing a metal set is about the equivalent of running a fucking marathon.
Right. Look up the name Pete Machine Gun Sandoval.
Yeah.
He was the longtime drummer for the band Morbid Angel. The man is like 6'4" and weighs like 110 pounds.
Yeah, but then you look at their arms and their legs, and they're fucking ripped to shit. They're, you know, but they're skinny as fuck.
There's a weird correlation between the looks of a marathon runner, that a double bass metal drummer, and a crackhead,
right?
Because they all pretty much have the same body,
right? And the runner you can tell by the legs.
Yeah.
The drummer you can tell by the legs and the arms, and the crackhead you can tell because there's no muscle tone at all.
Yeah, and the two of the three of them don't have scabby faces.
Right.
Unless they fell down.
Right.
But back then, we didn't have all this, you know, we didn't have the technology being able to find and, you know, check out music at will like we do now. One of the things that one of the misses that I got back then was there was this band called Celtic Frost.
Love Celtic Frost.
Yeah, I did too. They were a great older band. And this was about at the beginning of the used CD bins, which is where a lot of people would find treasures, and you find a lot of shit. But I was there and I found the Celtic Frost album Cold Lake.
Okay.
Now, it reminded me of this because I did buy this album, and it was not a Celtic Frost album. It is it's a glam metal album.
Yep.
And I was so disheartened, but it took 25 years, but I got to this point today that it was rated the second worst metal album of all time on this website that I saw earlier today.
Yeah. Well, you know, they had an album that was just fucking hardcore and great, and then they did that. And same as God, what is that other band in the '90s? That oh shit, can't remember the name of it. It doesn't matter. It might come back to me. But they went from Hey Man, Nice Shot. Remember that song? So
No.
I said, Hey Man, nice shot, man. It was a kind of a grungy song and stuff like that. And then after that, they went to basically pop rock. I'm gonna look up the song so I can figure out the band real quick.
Right on. One of the things I did find out about the Cold Lake album by Celtic Frost.
Filter.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
I can't even remember that band.
Yeah.
One of the members from the band Bathory, which if you don't know Bathory is a death metal band, and they're the not even death metal. I mean, fuck, they're a black metal band. I would say they're. If you've ever seen the Lords of Chaos, the band like Mayhem that those guys created in that, Bathory was one of those style bands. But one of the guys did a solo project there, and he actually cited the Cold Lake album as one of his influences for his solo music. So
okay,
yeah, so which is
that reminds me of. Have you ever seen that mockumentary about that Canadian metal band that never quite made it, but they're still trying to play?
Anvil.
Yeah, Anvil. Yeah.
Anvil. The story of Anvil. It's like a real life Spinal Tap.
Yes, that's what that reminds me of.
if you've never seen it, the beginning of it is fucking phenomenal because they show the Monsters of Rock tour in, I believe they were in Japan at the time, where you had bands like the Scorpions and Twisted Sister, and there was I think Van Halen, and there was a couple others that were on the same stage as them. All of these bands went on to sell 100 million albums, but one.
Yep.
And then they cut to Anvil, and they follow the story of these guys trying to bring their career back, and it's funny
really
and heartbreaking at the same time.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you reminded me of that, and I had to bring it up.
No, that's awesome. But
yeah, go ahead.
There's a couple other aspects about metal that today that I don't really care for, and a lot of it is the etiquette within the pit itself at a show. Growing up, I pretty much grew up in the mosh pit. Okay.
Right.
It was thrashing, it was moshing, it was, whatever you wanted to call it. I grew up going through it. The first pit I was ever in, I was like 16 years old. I was pulled out of the seats at the Slayer Testament show that I mentioned earlier, and somehow I ended up in the pit. I was in the third fucking row, and the pit came and swallowed me and brought me back in. So that was the first pit that I was ever in, and I'm like, okay, goddammit, here I am. So from then on, I've up until recently, I decided that I'm a little bit more. Actually, it happened coincidentally, Slayer was like the bookends of my pit, because about a year and a half ago, Slayer come around, and I saw it was their farewell tour, same show that I was talking about earlier. During Testament, I decided to jump out into this pit, and the pit is we're up in the lawn area, and the pit is going up and down this fucking hillside. Now, proud papa moment, my son was the one who started this pit. Another guy that he saw at several other shows comes up here, shoves my son. My son shoves him back. People are running from all over to join this pit that the two of them started. I was proud papa moment. But anyway, I get in there, and the small kid is coming the wrong way, and I hit him. He goes ass over tea kettle, and I turn around to try to pick him up, and 3 motherfuckers hit me. I go flipping, roll down the hill, and I slid doing the splits, and I pulled my groin.
Oh,
Jesus. I had to stand there with a pulled groin on a hillside for the rest of that show. I had 3 more bands to go through.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It took about 4 months for that finally to heal. So I don't go in the pit anymore, but there's something called these grindcore guys that would get in there, and all they'll do is they'll stand in the middle of the pit and they just start throwing their fists around, flailing around, not giving a fuck if they punch anybody. That's kind of what they do. Now, it's like that's not fun for anybody.
No.
So it's if you've never been in a pit, it's kind of weird because Exodus says it best. It's good and friendly, violent fun, but it's good and friendly, violent fun. So when somebody gets knocked down, there's one person gets knocked down, there's 4 people there to pick them up.
Right.
It's nobody wants to see anybody get hurt. But then these jackasses jump in there and start doing this shit, and people get hit, and it's just not fun. And I don't like the etiquette. Some people go, well, it's just a fucking pit. Well, if you don't like it, get the fuck out. Because a guy elbowed my son in the teeth once, and I confronted him about it, and he's like, it's the fucking pit, man. I was like, no, that's not how this shit happens.
Right.
You know?
Well, I've got a pit story for you. And mind you, I stay out of the pit because I just don't get into it, but I can see the thrill of it. So we go and to this festival at the Kellogg Center in Kalamazoo, and it was Chimera was playing. They weren't the headliner. Disturbed was the headliner. Had Kill Switch Engage, had that band with the guy and girl singer, somewhat Middle Eastern. I can't remember their name. And then Chimera. So they go in there for Chimera. And that girl singer also sang with Dave on, I think, a Tula Mode.
Okay.
But so they go in, and some dude elbows her, and this girl is like 5'2" at the most. Elbows her right in the cheek. She grabbed that motherfucker, spun him around, right in the fucking nose, knocked him on his ass, and I'm like, good for you.
He deserved it.
Yep.
He deserved it. I mean, it's a weird thing when you're in there. It's like, yeah, you're getting the shit kicked out of you, you're kicking the shit out of people, but it's everybody there's a willing participant, so it's fun. And I will say this though, in all the years that I was there, I missed a lot of really good fucking shows because I was too busy being an idiot running in a circle.
See, that's the other reason why I stay out of the pit, because I wanted to see the bands. Yeah. I mean, the first concert I ever went to, I was 16 years old. It was in Grand Rapids. I went with my friend and his girlfriend, and his girlfriend's mom drove us down there and waited out in the parking lot till the show was over. And this was, headlining was Dio.
Nice.
And you had Megadeth and Sabotage.
Oh, nice.
So I'd never heard of Sabotage. I wasn't a big fan of Megadeth. I was starting to like him a little bit, but I loved Dio.
Oh, yeah. Who didn't?
So I'm like, shit, yeah, I'll go. It's my first concert. So we go. Sabotage comes up there, and I'm like, their big hit was the Halls of the Mountain King, which I always called Halls of the Mountain King because to me it sucked ass.
Wasn't your brother really big into them?
No, he was.
Oh, it was just Manowar? I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, so we're there, and I'm watching these guys, and I'm like, they put on a shit show. Their music sucked. And, the singer between songs, like, oh, this is our guitarist so-and-so, he does more drugs than Satan himself. I'm like, who fucking cares? Just get off the stage. Then Megadeth come on. And like I said, at the time, I wasn't a big fan of Megadeth. 30 seconds into their opening song, they're my all-time fucking favorite band.
I could see that.
Because it was on the So Far, So Good, So What tour.
Oh, right.
And that was just a fucking awesome show. And then, so they're done, and I'm like, I love Dio. I want to see Dio. So I got all the way up, and I dragged my friend and his girlfriend all the way up to the gate, to the front of the stage. And then Dio comes out. And if anybody knows Dio used to have these hand signals where he'd cross his wrist and do like the devil horns.
Yeah.
With both hands. So I'm up front, and mind you, I'm 16, and Dio is only like 5 foot tall. And even on stage, when the stage is above your head, he still looks short. But he puts on an incredible fucking show. And I'm up front, and he's over by my side of the stage. And I'm doing that, the devil horns thing across the wrist to him. And he points at me and does it back to me. 16 years old. I'm like, fuck yeah, Dio pointed at me.
Right.
My first concert, he pointed at me. But so, and then my buddy's like, hey, man, you want to go? I'm like, it's fucking Dio. I ain't going until he's done.
Right. Exactly. Now, I never got to see Dio solo, but I saw him with Black Sabbath on the Dehumanizer tour.
Okay.
So I did get to see Dio live once.
But I'm sure it didn't have the stage show that Dio had.
Oh, no, there was no dragon coming out. He wasn't fighting any,
So let me explain so the people who don't know a Dio show. So Dio's on stage, and all of a sudden this mechanical dragon comes out, and dry ice pops out of its, flows out of its mouth, and like laser beams are shooting out of its eyes. And at the time, Craig Goldie was his lead guitarist, and Craig Goldie was a phenomenal fucking
Oh, yeah.
And he's doing the solo. He's gone, and all of a sudden the spider comes down from the ceiling, this huge, giant mechanical spider. And he points his guitar up at it while he's soloing, and he's shooting laser beams up, and it acts like it's exploding and shit. It's fucking awesome.
Nice. Was Carmine Appice the drummer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not the it was the Dream Evil tour.
Okay. Sunset. Okay. That is an underrated album to me.
Yeah.
Because like Sunset Superman is a great tune. I know a lot of like Dio purists aren't the biggest fan of that album, but I really liked it.
He never put out a bad fucking song.
No, no.
If you say he did, I'll fucking fight you.
Nice.
No, but I mean, I look at these bands, in the 80s, I like some of the glam rock bands. Like I like Dokken. And then years later, I saw them at the casino. And granted, Don had a cold, but I'm like, you just look like a fat slob.
Yeah.
And you kind of sing like one, and your show's fucking boring. What did I like about you?
Okay. Speaking of fat slobs, I saw Blue Oyster Cult back in the mid '90s, and I was just walking. I lived in Seattle. I was just walking around, and I went to back then they had a United Artists movie theater there where they'd play second run movies and older movies, and I just wanted to see what the movie was playing there, because like a Friday, Saturday night for $5 you could get a soda and watch Raiders of the Lost Ark or Blade Runner or something like that, It was, right. And then so you just bring it
theater here in town when they had the $1.50 movies.
Yeah, a lot like that. So I went down there to see what the movie was, and then I just happened to I don't remember what it was, like Terms of Endearment or some shit that I didn't want to watch.
Right.
But I turned around, and there's a King Cat Theater, which is right across the street from where this is at, and Blue Oyster Cult tonight. What? So I run over there to see if they had a ticket left, and they're like, oh, of course. So it's just one of those theaters. It's basically like a movie theater that this place is in, like where you'd see a play with no orchestra pit. But I'm like 30, 40 rows back, way off to the side. But I'm about to see Blue Oyster Cult, which I didn't think I was going to do tonight when I woke up. So, but I'm looking down the aisle, and here's, right after the opening band came out, then here's this big fat fuck talking to two gorgeous older women. And I'm like, I'm only 23, 24 at this time. So when I say older, they're like my age now. But so I'm looking down there and it's like, man, who the fuck is this dude? So I'm like, okay, whatever, And then the lights go down. Blue Oyster Cult's on stage. You can't hear the drums. I'm like, that's weird. But I look back there, and that fat fuck was the drummer.
That's why you couldn't hear the drums.
That's why we couldn't hear the drums.
He just walking back there, he got winded.
Yeah, but the rest of the band was phenomenal.
Yes, and we're allowed to body shame because I was fat for a long time.
So here's one for you. One time I went into I had this doctor for a while before they closed down this clinic, and I had to go find a new doctor. But she was awesome. And one day I was in there. I just had a physical, and I like, okay, doc, level with me. And a level with me, I can take it. She goes, looks down at the chart, looks back at me, and goes, well, you're fat. No, I can't take it, doc. I'm sorry. That hurt. Hit me right here.
Oh, that's funny. But anyways, we need to get back. We've gone deep into this rabbit hole. We need to talk about today's supposed metal and why it sucks. And the number one reason why it sucks, because it all sounds the same. There's no build up. It's all this through the whole song. It's back to that 3 chords and you're it.
Yeah, it's like one of them heard one of the other songs and they decided to replicate it with new lyrics.
Right. And it goes back to, Metallica's Unforgiven and Nothing Else Matters. Stained, they started it with Outside, then It's Been a While. And, all these bands, because Stained, like I said, Mud Shovel, heavy. Then they got all this attention for Outside, so every song they wrote afterwards was exactly like it.
And then Five Fingers, like, desire to be a cover band.
Yeah. I mean, because they've written some great fucking songs.
Oh yeah,
the
album is still in my top 10.
Right, and check out the acoustic version of The Bleeding. That's fucking awesome too. So I mean, they're a great band that just kind of lost it. Same with Disturbed. Same with Godsmack. I just don't get it. I want something different, but I still want it to be good.
Yeah, and that's a great point right there. Is different doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be you don't have to recreate. You don't have to be Mike Patton. You don't have to recreate the musical wheel here. You just have to create something that's lasting and that we'll remember in 3 weeks.
Right. I mean, a great example of it, and of course I'm going back to Mudvayne, but Mudvayne's cover of King of Pain by The Police.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to that. I mean, I listened to that cover, and I'm like, because that song came out when we were kids, and I always loved that song. Then I hear the cover, and I'm like, holy shit. I didn't realize it, but when I was listening to it as a kid, this is how I actually wanted it to sound.
Yeah.
Right. But so that's what we're talking about.
there are a few bands that have done covers that just absolutely suck shit. The bands that I really like, and their covers are horrible. Like the only song on Flotsam and Jetsam's "No Place for Disgrace" that I don't like is the Elton John cover, "Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting."
Yeah, I didn't care for it either.
So, other than that album is perfect for me.
Right. It's just I realize in music there's really nothing that hasn't been done. What you need to do is figure out what's been done that works and figure out a way to make it your own.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking. And by make it your own, I don't mean pussify it.
And you don't have to go different for the sake of different.
Right.
Some covers are great done the same way the other band did it. There's a lot of great covers that are near identical. There's some of the covers that there's some of Five Fingers covers that I really like.
Yeah. Oh, I liked a lot of their covers. I mean, I liked their cover of the Offspring song, but still, I want something different. I want them to get back to their roots and just write more music like that.
Exactly. And if you're a new band and you want to be a metal band, look at what has worked for other bands in the past. Mm-hmm. And there's a great new philosophy in business today. It's called R&D. It's called
Right.
rip off and duplicate. And just there are formulas out there for music that do work, that people enjoy. You know, you could take a, you know, a sound like older Metallica or a Megadeth or any of the big four, or, you know, you can be an homage to a great band like that without being a cover band of that band.
Exactly.
And
You know,
if you are, just don't do what the band Kingdom Come did in the 80s, where they were blatant ripoff of Led Zeppelin. And then when people ask them, well, how, you know, obviously you were influenced by Led Zeppelin, and they say, who's that?
yeah, bullshit. There's
Um,
no fucking way a band in the 80s that played rock music and never fucking heard of Led Zeppelin, the most iconic fucking rock band to ever exist.
especially when you're both from England.
Right.
You're both from bloody England.
Oh, that
So,
shit pissed
anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, we're asking if you guys are in a band and you call yourselves a metal band, be a metal band. You know, go back to the roots. Go back to that charging, driving fucking music that makes people want to get up and fucking move.
Yeah, and don't tell me that it doesn't work, because look at, I mentioned 3 bands earlier. I mentioned Toxic Holocaust, I mentioned Municipal Waste, and I mentioned Lich King. They are waving the flag of thrash metal and doing it proudly. Lich King has a great cover of Hot for Teacher by Van Halen that actually, to me, I actually enjoy more than the original.
Right. Or, you know, go the route of shit. Cradle of Filth. Go that route. You know, create that niche, that dark niche for yourself, that and build it, you know. But build songs. Don't start out the song with a, you know, build it up and go a pretty little intro, then just jump into it, you know. Go back to that formula.
And whatever it is, make sure that it's true to what you want to do. Because if you're just doing it for the money, which it seems like a lot of these bands are, then your fans will understand this. And as a marketer, I understand that you have, trust me when I say, you have to resonate with your customer. They know you better than you know yourself.
Right. And that goes back to when I was talking about the Black Label song, Board to Tears. I could tell watching that video that he hated what he was doing.
Nice.
So if you are playing music that you don't like just to make money, just fucking quit. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Music is not about money. Music is about passion. It's about creativity. It's about inspiration. It's about all these things. It's not just about fucking money. I know everybody wants to make a buck. Everybody needs money. I get it. But you're going to lose so many fans by selling out. I mean, I was a huge Metallica fan. I fucking can't stand them now. And
we spent 15 minutes slamming them earlier.
Yeah.
You sat through it. So, you know, now I take a band like Miss May I, which a lot of, they're a newer metal band that, you know, they're in the same genre as like of a Parkway Drive, of Motionless in White, you know, that kind of a grindcore type of I don't even know what the fuck they're calling it. There's so many goddamn subgenres anymore. But my son and I went and saw a Warped Tour several years ago, and Levi, the lead singer of this band, was actually walking up and down the line. I mean, there's like 2,000 people waiting to get into this thing. He's walking up and down the line, just meeting and greeting and talking to people and selling CDs. That's just awesome. Because he wanted to get out and meet the people.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You know, so people are out there taking pictures with him and shit. And my son bought a CD from him.
Yeah.
Because he had to carry it around all day.
Right. There was Years ago, I was in a band and we played original music. And the band I was in was called Mindseed. And I think our song Crack Messiah is actually on YouTube. If you want to go check it out, go check it out. But we would always, would play with other bands. And even if we were on before them, we always stayed to support those other bands. And so many bands don't. It's all about their ego.
Yeah.
But we got interviewed one time by a newspaper magazine. And we were quoted for our area as being the nicest guys in metal.
Nice.
We were dubbed that, not quoted that. But I mean, they just asked us questions like, yeah. Like, well, aren't you, didn't you guys already play? We're like, yeah. Well, why are you still here? Because you got to support the people you're playing with, man. It's a brotherhood. You have to have that camaraderie.
Exactly.
But anyways, we have spouted off on this for close to 2 hours.
Right. So, all right, we're gonna sum this one up for this week.
Yep. And the summary is: metal used to be good. Metallica killed it. Bring it back, please.
There you go. Even if it means copying Newsted some more.
Right.
So, all right. So, on behalf of myself, Jason,
and myself, Craig,
we're gonna say insert tagline here.
Peace out. Love you guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye.